I used to floss only once every 6 months, and I have a suspicion I'm not the only one. Like any normal person, I would floss carefully the hour before my dentist appointment, so that when the dentist asked if I floss, I could answer with an honest yes. Good habits, bad habits, we all have them. Whether it's making your bed first thing every morning or always leaving your bowl in the sink for someone else to wash. But it's so easy to gloss over the importance of habits and the pivotal roles they can play in our lives. Whenever we think about habits, we tend to think about our failures to change them. New Year's resolutions are a perfect example of this. In fact, the most common resolutions year after year are eating healthier, getting more exercise, and saving more money, all of which are resolutions that call for a change or improvement in habits. And yet, I would venture to guess that a very small percentage of people who make New Year's resolutions actually complete them. The struggles we have with habits are constant and glaringly obvious. So why is it that we so often fail at achieving that seemingly simple task? Perhaps the problem is because we put so little stock in them. For those of us that can't seem to break out of our bad habits, we brush it off as inconsequential and insignificant to our future, when in reality, the bad habits we have and our inability to change them herald the person we will become. The truth is, every habit is rather trivial on its own. Do you sleep on the right side of the bed or the left side? Or do you sprawl out and hog the entire bed? And do you always set 5 alarm clocks for the next morning only to slap the snooze button on every single one? And when you finally get up, if you get up, do you pour the milk first before the cereal or the cereal first? If you're the latter, then kudos to you. You're a decent human being. These aren't life-changing habits, but there is a trickle-down effect that can influence our personality. If you've never considered how you do a certain action at the same exact time, in the same exact way, then you might be a rule follower. And that may mean that you should slow down every so often to question those rules. And if you always slap that snooze button in the morning, then you're probably a crisis maker. You roll out of bed with only 5 minutes to get yourself out of the door when you could have just woken up on the first alarm. Put together, these little habits make each of us unique individuals with personalities that can shape and influence our relationships with others. On the other hand, there are also habits that seem innocent but can be devastating over time. Are you that one person who's always late to first period? I know I am. The information you miss in those first few minutes of class can always be made up later, but other people's perceptions of you as a chronically late and therefore disorganized person have already been made and aren't likely to change. This doesn't just hurt your relationships with others. It can damage the opportunities you may receive and your success. And if you don't have a problem with chronic tardiness, then let me ask you this. How many of you actually follow all the traffic rules when you're driving? I bet not. In fact, I would bet that if you do drive, you drive over the speed limit for an extended duration of time on a daily basis. Speeding, not using your turn lights, rolling over stop signs instead of coming to a complete stop. These are all bad habits that might get us to our destination a few minutes faster, but who knows when that habit ends up drastically changing our future with a single crash. There are so many seemingly easy habits that we want to be able to commit to, from putting on sunscreen, to drinking enough water, and sleeping instead of fiddling with our smartphones at night. We're rarely able to get out of our bad habits because we tell ourselves, what does it matter if we only do it this once? Well, this once was also what we told ourselves last time and the time before that. Sooner or later, our inability to break out of our bad habits causes us to grow into a litany of negative consequences. Even our steadfast reliance on habits can corrode positive qualities like creativity. Say you're in class and a teacher asks a particularly difficult question like, what's the term that describes the closing of leaves and flowers at night? And since we're all pretty predictable, I'd guess that the first thing you'll do is avoid eye contact with the teacher. The second thing you'll do is pull out your smartphone and Google the answer. I'll make it easy for you. The answer is nicked and nasty. But what happens if the answer requires a more creative solution and can't be found online? What happens if the answer isn't so simple as a word with a definition? Our reliance on habits can break down our creativity. As Albert Einstein would say, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting the same results. When we think about our inconsequential habits, we tell ourselves it doesn't matter. Changing my habit to pour the milk first instead of the cereal won't improve my GPA or fulfill my dreams. But when we have that same exact mindset about every single habit, then nothing gets changed. We do the same exact things day after day, year after year, somehow expecting that we'll advance or improve. Most of the habits we have today have been impressed on us by our family and friends, and there's nowhere more apparent than when we're young. I remember when I was 10 years old and I got my first smartphone, and I used it everywhere, except at the dinner table, where my parents told me off for trying to use it while eating. But soon enough, I noticed a double standard within the household. Every so often, my parents would pull out their smartphones at the dinner table to watch a video, text a friend, or read an article. Before I knew it, I had fallen back into the bad habit of using my phone while eating. Whenever we think about habits, we tend to only consider their possible consequences in the short term, disregarding the wide-ranging impacts they can have on not only our family, but also ourselves and our friends, thus allowing the habits we want to change perpetuate, continuing its succession through not only our lives, but maybe even through future generations. We can't change the past, and we can't choose the number of habits we've inherited, but we can choose to see the significance in the habits we do have, big and small, good and bad, consequential and inconsequential, and make the choice to change those habits now before they start to change us. Because habits don't just make up a huge part of who we are today. They also shine a light on the person we will become. Thank you.